Hello, welcome to Get Your Mind On. I'm Lori Stohs. You know, as we continue through life, there's always one thing that pops up often for people. In working with groups, I ask them a question as I build trust through the day, and I hand them a piece of paper and ask them to write one thing. What is your biggest fear? So interestingly enough, I of course tell them I'm not going to share it with the group, but it's more for a little research project and curiosity for me. And as I gather them and have them put it in an envelope and seal it and put it away, I don't open it till later on my way home. And as I recognize through this pattern, there have been a number of people who say the same thing, the fear of failure. So it really makes me stop and think about, why are we afraid? What are we afraid of? We have this fear of failure. And there's so many things that when people think about the failure, it's like, why am I limiting myself? You know, when we think about all that we are is a result of our thoughts. The mind is everything. We think what we become. That's a wise statement from Buddha. And so I really sit and wonder where this comes from. What is going on in our world that everybody's afraid? What are you afraid of? Well, sometimes it's judgment, right? We could be afraid of three things. One is fear of failure, one is fear of judgment, and one is fear of success. Now, when you dig deeper under these things and think about, okay, gosh, those have a little bit of variation. But sometimes when I start talking to people a little bit further and asking them, they don't want to let anybody down. They don't want to, they're proud and want to make their parents proud or their spouse proud or just their own self-pride. And they're afraid to fail and they're afraid that they're going to disappoint someone. There's also a result of shame. There's a little bit of shame underlying this that really it's about I'll feel shameful, like why wasn't I smart enough, right? Why couldn't have I done it differently? What about this? And I should have done this and I should have done that. You know, my line, you don't should on yourself, but we should on ourselves all the time that I should have done this or that. So part of it is really understanding what it is for you. What at the core is that fear of failure? And where does it come from? Because we're constantly self-sabotaging ourselves and just putting ourselves really at a standstill many times because of that. And so when you think about that failure, I think you first need to define, what does the failure mean for you? Does failure mean, doom and gloom? Does it mean shame? Does it mean self-sabotage then? Does it mean I'm not good enough? Instead of hope, instead of the next step to the next thing, instead of closer to the outcome, and looking at that definition to say, what is failure to you? So part of that is a mindset, part of that is a belief of what that means to you. So I think you need to really think about that as a whole to say, what does that really mean to me when I think of the word failure? So let's look at those three questions again: fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of success. We really need to think and reframe it. So when we go through that, how do we work through that? So we know it, we read about it, we read books and say, how can I change things? And we still sit here at a pause and wonder, what's the deal? So I want to take you through just a little activity that you can do. First is ask yourself a few questions. The first question is, what if I do nothing? The second is, what if I fail? And the third is, what if I succeed? So let's walk through that for just 1 second. Let's think about do nothing. So take a piece of paper as you're thinking about failure and you're pausing. And some of you probably don't take enough time to even pause. You just keep going through your day-to-day thing and avoiding this big elephant that's sitting there you've dealt with for years. So this is going to take a little bit of time to stop and reflect. But what if I do nothing? So sit and think about, if you do nothing, what happens? Well, look ahead 5 years. Look ahead 10 years and say, where will I be? Gosh, if I don't do nothing and I'm happy today, I'm probably going to be more unhappy. If it's affecting my family is going to have more stress. If I'm stressed, my health is going to be hindered by that. All of those things, if I don't go to the gym and I'm gaining weight, I'm going to keep gaining weight. Whatever it is, it's what is causing that if I do nothing? The second thing is, what if I fail? So obviously, doom and gloom, and we start going into this cycle and, what about this and what about that? And we make up things that aren't even close to possible. And our head just starts spinning, right? We're masters at spinning our minds that we make up things that aren't even true. So I want you to think about, what if I fail? But the second question of that is, how will I recover? So sure, we've all failed. Has anybody not failed? Raise your hand. I think we all are in that same audience. But it's how we recover. And what do we do with that next step to make it actionable for us to say, if I recover, here's what I'm going to do next. So you kind of have a plan in place, so you already thought about that. And the last thing is, what if you succeed? Oh, that's where all the joy and the hope and the dreams come out, right? We dream. A lot of us are great dreamers, and we want to do that, right? We have the thought already in mind. We visualize what it looks like. It becomes colorful. It becomes alive, and then we stop. Right? We stop because of that cycle of that fear. But think about that success and think about that pattern and what'll happen. And so really when you look at those areas of asking yourself the questions, that'll get you the point to move over to the next side, to get closer, maybe even closer to getting rid of that fear of failure, fear of judgment, or even the fear of the success. I think sometimes success comes along, people are afraid, what if it's too successful? How will I manage? Well, guess what? You'll figure it out. A lot of people are in that position if they have a successful business and they just move on to that next level, and that's how we learn and grow. So for positive charge this week, I want you to think first, what is your fear? What does that fear mean to you? Is it the fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of success? And what's your definition of failure? And third is, what is one of those failures that you can study and ask yourself the 3 core questions? So when we think about ourselves, we think about the fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of success, that fear inside is only something we create in our own minds. It's not even real. Okay, there's some things that delay us, but really if we want to really grow and expand our lives, the best thing we can do is dig deeper and understand how to move through it. Thanks for joining us today, and remember to get your mind on.